All right, guys, I am so excited who we have here for today's episode. We have Dale Archdekin. He is the founder of Smart Sales Coaching, and they specialize in lead conversion training for real estate agents, ISAs, teams, and brokerages. With nearly 2 decades of experience as a real estate agent, team leader, and an expert in lead conversion, Dale is a renowned figure in the real estate industry. His unique and modern approach to scripting, sales dialogue, and lead conversion training is leveraged by the top 5% of the Real Trends 1000, as well as respected industry tools such as Follow Up Boss, RedX, Ylopo, and many others. He has a sales training company that specializes in script and dialogue training for agents and ISAs, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him several years ago. He came and trained in person our ISA. So welcome, Dale. We're so excited to have you on today's podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored. It's great. I haven't seen you guys in a long time, and I was super excited to hear that you know all the amazing things you guys have done with growing the company, and it's awesome. You guys have always done great work, and it's nice to see how things have progressed.
Yeah, thank you so much. So today, Dale is going to talk to us about 4 core sales scripting skills agents need to double their weekly appointments, including intros, objection handling, value proposition, and closing. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about what are some of the issues people run into with the intro. So like they're just now trying to get a client, they're doing some prospecting, and where are the issues that they come with just the intro, like meeting the person for the first time?
Yeah, and it's not even meeting them for the first time. In a lot of cases, what agents or salespeople struggle with is, how do I get into a conversation with a stranger, with a lead? You know, if I'm working through the database, talking to people that either haven't requested any information or don't know who you are or weren't anticipating your call or connection, as well as even in some cases when you get referred business. So one of the big things that we see a lot of times, agents make fewer contacts or they make fewer attempts because they just don't feel comfortable or knowledgeable or confident about how to get into a conversation with somebody. And I mean, it makes sense, right? I don't know how much you like calling complete strangers who don't want to talk to you or don't have time for you. But, in reality, it can really kind of be a damper on your energy or, hold down the enthusiasm you would have for getting into a conversation with somebody. So, one big thing that we do is we teach them a good system for how to get into a conversation with people. And really, it's the first, as they say, you only have one chance to make a first impression with somebody. And that's especially true when you're first talking to leads. And the other thing is, when we're training salespeople, a lot of salespeople forget that they are salespeople. So Heather, in your day-to-day life, how often do you like talking to a salesperson when you're not trying to buy something or you don't have a question you want to get answered?
Right. Never. I'm like, don't answer.
You don't want to talk.
I think I'm not interested. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's okay. That's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that because even we as consumers do the same thing. So then when we're in the salesperson's seat, right, we get weird, we get in our heads, we're uncomfortable. So when we're teaching salespeople, it's like, look, recognize that they're going to reject you or not want to talk to you or try to very quickly figure out whether this is important to them or not in the moment. And so we just teach them a very simple process of the 3 things that a prospect wants to know when you reach out to them. Who are you? Why are you calling me? What do you want? You need to be able to deliver those things very quickly up front when you first contact a lead or prospect, because that's what they want to know. And they're already in opposition to you. Like, let's talk about it, realistically. These days, who calls your phone and the number isn't in your phone and you don't recognize the voice when they answer, right? That's only salespeople. So there's a couple of also pro tips that we give. So you want to answer the 3 questions first. Who are you? Why are you calling? What do you want? And then we add a few pro tips to that. And that would be match the first word that they say. So if they answer the phone and say hello, you say hello. If they say hi, you say hi. You want to match that first word for a couple of reasons. One is because it matches and it's cheap. It doesn't cost you anything, right? And it sounds the same, so it doesn't get stuck in there. Is this different lizard brain filter that we all have going on, right? You can very clearly pick out, does something sound the same or does it not sound the same? So match the word. It helps not be out of rapport with them. The other reason that you want to match the word is because it forces you to be actively listening to them instead of in your head thinking about what you're going to do. So that's one. Another pro tip is you're going to use their name assumptively. Know who it is, right? I know it's you, Heather, even if it's not Heather, right? Nobody ever accidentally talked to a salesperson. So if I call you up and I match your word and I know that it's you, it forces you to stop and think, should I know who you are? Because you know who I am. Versus me asking if it's you, right? Who these days calls your phone, you don't recognize the number, don't recognize their voice, and they don't know it's you?
Right.
That's a salesperson, right? And that's when the clock gets much shorter, right? And you're like, I'm going to get off the phone with this salesperson. So use their name assumptively. There's actually some sales trainers out there right now who teach that you should call people up and be slightly confused and not know if you're talking to the right person or not. That is definitely like some Hollywood advice. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds good, it sounds snacky, it sounds new,
Right.
but it's absolutely freaking terrible.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to talk to a salesperson already. If you're already like, I don't feel like talking to a salesperson, and this salesperson didn't at least take the time to figure out who you were and know why they're calling you, you just get even more annoyed with them, right?
Yes.
Who wants to be called by a confused salesperson? Absolutely nobody.
So you would say when you're calling someone, you wouldn't say like, hey, is this Dale? You would say, hello, Dale. Like, you would automatically, even though it, like, what if the wife answered the phone? What would you do in that situation?
I would just omit the name and I would
Okay.
still go with the action. So let me give you an example. So here's a basic internet script, right? Ring, ring, Heather.
Hello?
Hello, Heather. This is Dale Archdekin with Amazing Realty. Looks like you registered on our site to look at homes for sale. Are you planning on buying in the next few months, or are you just window shopping at this point? Okay. That's a very straightforward script, and it uses all the elements that I told you about, plus some additional ones that I can outline. But let's say that it's a man's name, right? John Smith. Ring, ring, Heather.
Hello?
Hello, this is Dale Archdekin with Amazing Realty. It looks like you registered on our website to look at homes for sale. Just wanted to see if you're planning on buying in the next few months or if you're window shopping at this point. The same exact script, the same control, the same delivery, the same questions. It's just that I omitted the name. I didn't use your name because it said John Smith and you didn't sound like you would likely be a John Smith, right?
Right.
That's it.
I like that. Yeah. So you're not asking them like, hey, Dale, how are you today? Because no one wants it. Like, you want them to get straight to the point. Like, as soon as they start, it's just the next breath, your first breath is going to say all of that. Like, this is who I am, why I'm calling, and asking the question.
Yeah. And I'm going to give a couple of caveats to that. If you are operating in major urban centers, like I'm in Philadelphia, so that's best practices right now in Philadelphia, in LA, in New York, in Miami. If you're operating in a smaller location in a rural area, you can go slower and you can ask them how they are. And so you want to calibrate what you're doing and how you're doing it to your market and how people talk to each other. And you can switch things up. So we call it a salutation when somebody says, oh, hey, Heather, how are you today? Right? Or, hey, Heather, this is Dale Archdekin with whatever. How are you? How are you is a salutation where I pause and let you interact with me. That's a normal part of speech. Like, if you think about it, when you call your friends or family, you don't just launch into what you want typically, unless you're mad at them, right? You're usually going to ask them, hey, what's up? How's it going? There's going to be some informal salutation. So that's totally fine. As a salesperson, though, people are constantly bombarded by spam calls right now. So they want to know very fast, who are you? Why are you calling me? What do you want? And like I said, test it out. So you try out the push-in method, which is straightforward. Here's who I am. Here's why I'm calling you. Here's what I want to know. If you're getting resistance there or people are confused, then slow down, say who you are, and then use a salutation, and then why you're calling and what you want. So you can test out the two and see which one you get more good results or good energy from.
I love that. And yeah, it's really about like knowing your market, knowing your client base that you're prospecting to, because I love that you talk about, we do a lot of this, profiling for when we're hiring people, but it's also really important in understanding your client So yeah, if you are in a more urban, fast paced, like people they want quick information, you're going to go right at them. But yeah, if you're maybe in, a retirement area or just a more laid back rural area, that would be very off putting to them because they want to get to know you, have some sweet tea first. Like, they're wanting, so you do need to understand your market. And I like that to understand who you're calling and to kind of understand that. Yeah.
Let me demonstrate that. Let me demonstrate the tone for you. Let's say that we're in a small rural market, right? Ring, Heather.
Hello.
Hello, Heather. This is Dale Archdekin with Amazing Realty. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Listen, it looks like you might have registered on our website to look at some homes for sale in the area. And I just wanted to see if you're planning on making a move in the next few months or if you're just window shopping at this point. So I did it slower, much slower pace, much more jovial, right? Delivery. And that's how you would do it. So you just calibrate to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Now let's kind of talk about the next part. And this is, as agents, I know whenever we say like, let's talk about objection handling, everyone wants to roll their eyes and be like, I don't need scripts. I know what I'm doing. But it is important to understand. You may not need to memorize the script exactly, but there are things that you need to know right off the tip of your tongue to be able to answer when people come back with objections. So like, what are some of the issues that people run into with objection handling and how do you get them to kind of overcome that?
I would say that the biggest one is that agents don't ask enough questions. So we break objection handling down into 5 categories. That would be discovery, disputing, promotion, education, pitching, and closing, right? So when you break it into those 5 categories, usually where salespeople mess up is when somebody says, no, not yet, not with you, not under these circumstances, the salesperson automatically gets defensive and tries to disagree or dispute or educate and then try to pitch and then try to close. And that's the wrong thing to do. So when we're teaching objection handling, we really focus on the discovery part, because if you think about it this way, the problem that salespeople have is when somebody says, no, not yet, not with you, they immediately want to change that person's perspective. They want to change their mind. They want to change their decision, and they want the prospect to go in a different direction. But let me ask you this, Heather. In your day-to-day life, if you tell a salesperson, no, not yet, not now, not with you, or not under these circumstances, do you want them to immediately try to change your mind?
No, I don't want them to.
Do you want them to argue with you?
No. Yeah.
And if you're saying no, salesperson, not now, not with you, not under these circumstances, do you want to keep chatting with them for a long time?
No.
No, none of those things, right? Most salespeople screw up by trying to immediately argue with you, change your mind, and carry on the conversation after you said no, not yet, or not with you. So what we teach instead is usually 99% of the time, the consumer is saying these things to you because they've thought about their options. They have some kind of knowledge or experience or perception that is driving that decision to wait or with somebody else or under certain other circumstances because they think it's going to get them some kind of outcome or outcomes, right?
Right.
So if they have all of that going on and they say, no, not yet, not with you, and you start arguing with them, trying to change their mind, you don't have enough information to do that with at that moment. So instead, we teach salespeople how to ask really amazing questions to understand that prospect, right? All right, Heather's saying no, or not yet, or not now, or not with me. What does she know? What does she think? How did she come to that decision? Why is she going to go about it that way? I need to know those things first so that I have a better shot at figuring out, oh, okay, now I understand why you're saying this. Maybe we can get you to the same outcome or even better by doing it a different way once I understand you. So we teach the most important part, which is the discovery. You got to ask better questions. So, I'll give you an example. Prospect says to you, oh, hey, thanks, Heather, but I'm not going to be buying until next year, right? Your typical salesperson is going to say, oh, got it. Well, I don't know if you know this, but right now the interest rates are decent. They might go higher next year. And We don't even know where prices are going to be. So if I could find you the right house at a good price, would you consider buying now? That's your typical real estate agent. We want to build much better, smarter salespeople. And so we teach them instead to say, oh, got it, Heather. What's important about buying next year? How did you decide to buy next year? Is there an advantage to you to buy next year? Start there first, unpack them, understand them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that, because you're exactly right. And a lot of times, we just immediately go to the script, because the salespeople were like, we want the sale right now on the phone. And again, I love that you're asking these questions instead of saying why are you not wanting to buy right now? Just asking the questions like, what makes you think about next year? I love those types of questions. What are some other objections that you would say people get a lot that they're not handling correctly?
Yeah. I'm just going to work with the listing agent, right? So this is a big triggering one, and we work with a lot of our clients on training them out of that. And I love to use that example, because anytime you're training salespeople, they get so triggered by it that they totally forget everything you taught them, and they just start like arguing and pitching and doing all kinds of stuff. So let's say so tell me, Heather, I'll demonstrate some questions for you, okay? So Heather, tell me that you're just going to work with the listing agent.
Okay. Yeah, I drove by this house. I saw it. I'm just going to call the listing agent that I saw on the sign. I think it's probably easier. They already know the house.
Oh, got it. Okay. Have you worked with a listing agent directly before? That's one question into what you said, right? Another, tell me again, you're just going to call the listing agent.
I'm just going to call the listing agent. I'll just have them show me the property.
Oh, got it. Is there an advantage to working directly with the listing agent? I'm just demonstrating for you these unpacking questions that are going to help you set the stage to either have an opportunity to educate this prospect or be able to suggest a different direction because you've allowed them to tell you what they know or what they think or what's important. You gather more information in that way. So that's just a quick demonstration of that. And then based on what you say is going to determine the next questions that I ask or the next direction that I go with the conversation. So this is why scripting doesn't work in that respect. Scripting works really great for intros and for outros and for certain, maybe possibly within a conversation, like if I need to demonstrate value or something. But when it comes to this kind of thing, where you're in opposition to me, you really can't script that stuff because I have to figure you out first. Once I've figured you out, then I know which direction to go or how to take a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. So intros, we're going to have the assumptive intro. Just go for it, obviously based on your market that you're prospecting to. And then objection handling is really asking questions. Instead of direct educating, ask questions first that put you in a position to be able to educate once you've allowed them to put themselves in a position where they want to be educated, basically.
Exactly. Or you at least get them to dump out their knowledge onto the table and they either run out of it or you get a much better understanding of who they are. So now let's say, look at the two different scenarios. You said, I'm just going to call the listing agent. It'll be easier to work with them, or I'm going to have them show it to me, right? Imagine two different people that said the exact same thing. And when I start asking my questions, this person over here has bought her last couple of properties by doing the exact thing, and she has evidence of success of doing that. This one over here has no idea what they're doing and just thought that would be a good idea, but no frame of reference to know why they should do it that way or reason for it. You're going to go two very different directions with those two different people, but you don't know who you're talking to until you figure it out. That's what we teach salespeople because that's what's missing in a lot of sales training. A lot of sales trainers are going to teach you how to argue and be really smart and really clever and how to make people wrong, suggestively or even directly, but we teach you how to unpack that person first, which is woefully missing. So we actually created this thing called the question game that helps do that. And what we do is we give the participants, our students, some rules on the question game, right? You have to ask a direct question. It can't be indirect. You can't argue with me. You can't make me wrong. You can't pitch or close me. And then we practice by me just saying objections to the student and they have to formulate in the moment good direct questions to get to the core of their decision-making process. So that makes a massive difference for our students. Like, you wouldn't even believe the difference that it makes.
Also, it takes the person that you're calling off the defensive, because I would say a lot of personality types, regardless of what you are, if you tell someone like no, or you give their reason why, and then they just start coming at you, I know for me, I don't want to be told. Like, don't just start explaining to me why. Like, and I like that because it takes the person off of immediately being defensive, because you're already getting a sales call and you've already told them no or the reason why not. And then if they just start going in and educating you, then I'm like, I'm done with this call. I'll hang up. This allows them to, now you're in a conversation instead of an explaining situation. And it gives that person a little bit more, it might take them off their heels so that they can actually listen and you have now the opportunity to educate them on something, or just give them a different perspective. They still may stay the same, but at least now they have something to think about.
Right.
Even if they had used the listing agent many times before and they had a successful experience, you still may be able to give them a couple of other options that they think, maybe they're right. Maybe I missed out on some negotiation techniques, or maybe I paid a little bit more than I would have had I had a buyer's agent. And it just gives you an opportunity to put those kind of questions in their mind that they might call you back. They might end up using you. And I like that.
Exactly. The other thing too, is that when you're talking to a consumer and the consumer says, no, not now, not with you, not under these circumstances, they feel like they're right and that they're justified. So like you pointed out, don't start arguing with me immediately, but instead, if I said, oh, sounds like you might be right, please tell me how you're right. Most consumers are like, I'd love to tell you why I'm right, salesperson.
Yes.
And what they don't know, if you do it the right way, what they don't know is that they're just helping you formulate, how can I crack this nut, right? Where's an opening? Where's a gap in your knowledge or experience or assumptions that I can then exploit, right? And I don't know that until I ask you the questions. And the consumers are more than happy to tell you if you ask them in a non-threatening way.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So we've talked about the intro, we've talked about the objection handling. Now there's the value proposition. So someone might now get to the point where they have someone now willing to listen to them. What is the value proposition? What are some issues people run into with that? And how can they really give a good value proposition to get that to the close?
Sure. You know what? I love to do this, and I've done this from stage when I speak and I present on some of our training systems. And what I'll do in the crowd is I'll ask, hey, why should I buy a home with you? What would you say to me? Why should I list my home with you? What would you say to me? And if you get people to have to do that out loud, they very quickly realize how unprepared they are to do that. And so that's a really great test. So everybody listening to this, if you think, if Dale asked me directly, why should I buy a house with you, or why should I list my house with you? Whatever comes out of your mouth next is your value proposition. And so we teach this. And what's funny is, in some cases, we'll have students who say to us, Dale, nobody ever directly asks me why they should buy or sell with me. To that, I would say, one, you just haven't talked to enough consumers, because somebody will definitely ask you that question. And two, even if they don't say those words to you, they're thinking it, right? They're doing the math in their head. Is this the right agent? Should I trust them? What am I going to get out of working with them? Is this the best choice for me, right? So to make up your value statement, it will make you much more confident if you can have, at minimum, the answer to why should somebody buy with you and why should somebody sell with you. And so to do that in our training, we created this framework to make it very simple. And we start there. And the framework goes, we or my team, with our knowledge, experience, or process, give you result, result, result. And so we have our students just kind of craft with that framework their own statements, right? So have they been in business for X amount of time? Or do they have an amount of experience? Or do they, have they worked with a certain number of clients that they know they can provide certain results? And we have like a list of results they just pick from them. But they're pretty common, right? It's like save money, make more money, avoid risk, control the process, or whatever it may be, guarantee of success. So they just take those elements and they bake it into the statement. And that makes it really powerful for our clients to be able to deliver, and makes them very confident to talk to anybody, really.
I want to tell you, one of the reasons why I joined and I just love Canzel is that I can get 100% commission, I get revenue share, and I get stock. I am making thousands of dollars every single month in revenue share and stocks. And I now don't have to work nights and weekends on real estate anymore. You know, I've actually never been to a real estate agent's retirement party, and I want to be the first one that people are coming to at a young age. And I want to share with you some of my favorite resources. So if you go to joincanzel.com/free, there's a couple that I want you to download. One is a 20 free lead generating PDF. It's going to help you generate leads for free that you can download, as well as there's one on how to double your business. I don't want you to miss it. Go download it today. joincanzel.com/free.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important to have a list of your value propositions, because if you've done the questioning part really well, you have found their whole, basically. I do the same thing, like I'm hiring for a position or whatever. I let them talk. Like, I want to hear all the stuff. I want to hear what is something that they loved about where they were working and maybe something that they wanted to change. Because what I'm listening for is, what is it that we can offer them that they've been missing? And so it's the same type of thing when you're looking for a client. So if you're asking those questions, like you talked about in the objection handling, you found the whole. So then when it comes to whether they directly ask you your value proposition or not, you're able then to work in there how whatever their pain point was, you now have a solution for that. So whether it was, I wanted to make a lot of money, I wanted to sell it quickly. If you have a value proposition of, I have this program that does this, and you could be like, oh, well, I've helped some of my clients by this program that I have. And now you've given your value proposition without sounding like a salesperson. You're able to work it in the conversation. And I think that's really the art of it, because a lot of people, they think scripting is robotic. It's like, oh, well, I sell everyone's home fast and for top dollar, and this is the 5 points of how I do it. And that's where people are like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want a robot salesperson. But if you have asked those questions, like you talked about in the objection handling, you can work your value proposition in there without someone having to say, why should I hire you? You've already explained it to them in a conversational way that's just natural, and they're more likely to be open to using you as their agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, a lot of salespeople don't know what their value is. They don't. Yeah. And I hate to say that now because of all the NAR conversation about show your value, talk about you. But in reality, we've been training this since before the NAR settlement was even a thing, because just as salespeople, the difference between being able to clearly articulate, here's why you should do business with me because I can provide X, Y, and Z, the difference of having that versus not having that makes you a vastly more confident salesperson.
Yeah. And I want to get to the last piece, the close, but I want to ask you real quick, since you talked about the NAR settlement, we have a lot of agents that are kind of freaking out right now about, oh gosh, I've never had to get a buyer representation agreement signed. Like, I didn't make my client sign that before. How are you helping your coaching clients with this kind of new navigation of everyone's going to be required to have these buyer broker agreements that explain a lot of different things and disclose a lot that wasn't required before?
Yeah. So a couple of things that we're doing. We've been working with some of the top teams, again, on the Real Trends 1000 directly, like the number 3 and the number 4, to flesh out this scripting. However, are you in Florida, Heather?
I'm in Virginia, but we have agents in Florida. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, as of this taping, they're still dropping new regulations. They're still changing documents. And so it's been a hard target to hit because we don't know exactly what we can say or what we can't say. But what we're doing now is we're just getting ahead of it. And we're saying, all right, everybody, we're going to role play this scenario. Let's say that you can do this. We're going to role play around it, right? What are the objections we're going to run into? Okay, everybody, let's role play this scenario. Let's say you can't do any of that, but you can do this. Really, it's about learning how to be more flexible and just being salespeople, right? At the end of the day, there's a certain set of techniques and strategies that you do as a salesperson, like building rapport, like articulating value, like doing discovery. When it comes to objection handling, sometimes it is doing discovery, which is the best way to start, and then you need to educate or you need to pitch. So around the NAR settlement language, that's what we're doing. We're just writing out these scenarios. Whether or not you're actually going to be able to do all of them or some of them or none of them, we don't know, but we're getting ready for it. And I will say this for those buyer agents freaking out, I get it. I understand why you're freaking out. But I was a long time listing agent. And so for the 6 years or so that I was a direct listing agent and I only took listings and 5 to 7 listings a month on average, I had to go find the people who had a property they were willing to talk about selling, get in front of them, describe why they should work with me, exactly what I was going to do, how much I was going to charge, and then ask them to sign the paperwork to do it. So I can tell you as a longtime listing agent, it can be done, it will be done, and you'll be able to get it figured out. And it's just a matter of practicing it. And so that's what we're doing currently, is we're on the forefront of listening to how the consumers are reacting to this, changing the way that we're having our dialogues, and just practicing and getting ready for it.
Yeah, I love that. And as we're wrapping up here, let's talk about the close. So we've introduced ourselves, we've handled their objections, we've told them why they should hire us. Now, what are some issues that people have with the close, and how do you help them with that?
So in a lot of cases, what happens as a salesperson, where they go wrong, is they will make a close that isn't the logical conclusion to the conversation they just had with a prospect, right? You'll hear them either close when it's just sort of a hard left in the conversation, or you'll hear them not take an opportunity to close when that's the only thing left to do in the conversation. So that's one of the things that we train. To practice that effectively, what we do is we break the categories down into the types of people that you're talking to. So the easiest ones, obviously, are the people who ask for an appointment. And then you have people who sound like they're open to an appointment, right? It's a pretty easy conversation. Then you have the people where they don't have a clear need or clear desire, and it's not apparent whether or not they'd agree to an appointment. And then you have the people who are oppositional to you, right? Who are saying, no, not now. I don't want to meet. I don't need to meet. So we practice those different levels so that you have the experience with the people asking for an appointment. I mean, if you screw that up, you might want to consider a different career, right? But so you can get that one. With the people where it sounds like it would make sense and they're pretty amenable to it, that's an easy pitch. Hey, Heather, based on everything we said, sounds like the next steps are for me to come take a look at your home, give you some advice on exactly what you can do to get it prepared to sell for the most money possible in this current market while you still have time, right? That's a simple close. To make it the logical conclusion, if you and our conversation is not heading toward we should meet, then I can orchestrate it that way, right? I want to find out, where is the extent of your knowledge around what you're going to do next? Where is the extent or the end of your planning or of your process, right? How can I craft for you something that you would want that would then require a meeting so that I can orchestrate it and make it the logical conclusion to our conversation? Is that too heady, or does that all make sense?
No, that makes sense. I love it. Well, Dale this is just a little piece of how amazing he is and what he can teach you. So Dale, I want you to tell them where they can find you, and you have a special offer for our listeners today.
We do. Actually, we have a little mini course that we put together that lays out some of these principles that you guys can get totally for free. And we'll drop the link in the show notes where you can sign up and watch that video training on demand. Also, if you want to know more about our training programs, you can find us at smartsalescoaching.com. We are also on YouTube. I do this awesome podcast called Cash Call, where we're either live playing and coaching on actual call recordings to give feedback, or we're interviewing other people similar to what you're doing here. And you can find us on YouTube at Smart Sales Coaching.
Awesome. And we're going to drop all these in the show notes. So you'll have access to them, as well as all of our listeners on here. They will send that out to you in an email. So thank you, Dale, so much for coming on today. We really appreciate you. Everyone, show Dale some love in the chat, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating and a review so we can get this out to more agents. And tune in next week for another power-packed episode. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Podcast.